Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. Monster Hunter is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. It is said that there are new worlds, hidden from the perception of our senses. In this special new world, humans coexist with many types of large and savage monsters. There is also a mystical tower in the middle of the desert that is always surrounded by dark clouds and lightning, and that is where a sand boat commanded by the Admiral is currently headed. However, their journey is suddenly interrupted when they are attacked by a doom-dwelling monster named Diablos. He tried to overturn the ship by pushing it with his giant body, so the Admiral rushed to the helm and tried to steer the ship out of the monster's path. The escape was successful, but unfortunately, while trying to save Handler from the falling ship, the hunter fell and was left in the desert. On Earth, Captain Natalie Artemis and her security team of Lincoln, Marshall, Dash, Steeler, and Axe searched the desert for a team of missing soldiers. The only clues they had were the recording of the SOS message and the tire tracks on the road that suddenly stopped, as if the car that had left them had disappeared into thin air. There were also mysterious stone pillars near the road with symbols they couldn't read. Suddenly, a dark storm appeared before them, moving at breakneck speed. The team boards the vehicle to escape when the storm strikes all the mysterious markers with lightning, causing the writing on them to glow. No matter how fast the team drives, the storm is faster and soon hits their cars, engulfing them inside a gate as the vehicles fall off the edge of a cannon. The cars are pushed by the wind. They roll and flip, pushing passengers out of their seats. When they finally landed and the soldiers got out, they noticed the storm had receded and was moving over a mountainous area with various structures not shown on the map. The desert they were in was also filled with sand dunes, which was impossible because the nearest dune had to be 20 kilometers away. All of their electronics are broken and even their compass doesn't work, so they decide to try to get back to base by navigating using the sun. However, Axe tells them to wait until he finds something. These are the cars used by the missing team. Next door there were bodies burned so badly that even a flamethrower couldn't do it. There were other things around, pieces of glass, suggesting that something extremely hot had melted the sand, and hollow point bullets, meaning the dead soldiers were defending themselves against something. Either way, it didn't leave any marks in the sand. Worried about what caused this, the group gets in the car and leaves the area, unaware that Hunter is watching them through his spyglass. But they stopped when they discovered another spectacular thing, a giant animal skeleton, even larger than a dinosaur. Taking advantage of their stop, Hunter shot them an arrow, and the soldiers responded by opening fire until Artemis caught the arrow and told them to stop. There was only chalk on it, a signal warning. Just then, Diablos emerged from the sand and began chasing the team as they tried to escape in their car. No matter what they shot at, it remained unaffected by all, and it eventually got close enough to hit one of the cars and flip it over several times, killing Axe. Steeler manages to escape before the car is crushed and jumps into the Jeep with the others, but they don't get too far before Diablos also runs over the car and hits Steeler with his tusks. Just before he died, he threw a few grenades at the monster, which didn't harm him but gave his team a chance to hide among the rocks. When Hunter fires a smoke arrow at Diablos to slow him down, the group enters a cave whose entrance is too small for the monster to follow them, so they temporarily give up and leave. Dash begins to worry about their situation, but Artemis, as leader, gives orders and tells them that they will be good soldiers and that way they will survive. However, her words are interrupted when she is suddenly captured by a spider-like monster named Nucilla, which stings her and injects her with paralyzing venom before dropping her and running away as the soldiers started shooting at her. Marshall and Lincoln attempt CPR to no avail, and Dash begs them to go, as more Nucilla have fallen that night. Assuming Artemis is dead, Lincoln, Marshall, and Dash leave the cave as they continue to shoot the monster with the help of Hunter, who shoots explosive arrows from a cliff and has to flee when a Nucilla chases him. Dashes and falls, delaying his group's escape. This gives one of the monsters the opportunity to attack from above and capture Marshall. While Hunter hid in his secret lair, Artemis woke up, quite dazed. She could hear her teammates screaming from outside, but was soon knocked out again when Nucilla found her. The next time Artemis woke up, she found herself in a cocoon in Nucilla's nest, which luckily was thin enough for her to tear it apart with her bare hands. Once free, she noticed she was surrounded by bones and other cocoons containing the bodies of Dash and Marshall. Fighting dizziness and pain, Artemis picked up her teammates' drop bag and took out 2 flares, an oxygen tank, and a bunch of ammo. Using one of the fires as both defense and light, she walked down a kind of hallway made of spider webs and was suddenly startled by Lincoln, who couldn't feel his arms and was experiencing chest pain. Unaware that the monsters are following them, Artemis helps Lincoln walk towards the exit as her fire goes out. The moment she turned her back on the other, a Nucilla appeared in front of them, which Artemis kept at bay thanks to her new rocket. However, things get complicated when Lincoln feels more pain in his body and rips off his shirt to discover that there are eggs hatching on his wound. Nucilla grabbed him and took him away, and when she tried to do the same to Artemis, she ignited it by combining the rocket with the oxygen tank, causing the entire nest to burn down. Artemis started climbing towards the exit and she almost made it when a Nucilla grabbed her leg and pulled her back inside, so she freed herself by throwing the collected bullets into the fire, causing they explode. When she finally emerged from the cave, it was morning and sunlight prevented Nucillas from following her. After being frightened by the sensation of crawling on her body, she opened a ball she found on the ground and poured powder on her ankle wound. Then she smashed 2 rocks together to create sparks and ignite the powder. Effectively burns the wound. She then climbed the hill to better understand the area, but she only saw the desert around her and the storm that had brought her here on the horizon. This might be her key to getting home, but there's one thing she needs to check first. She threw a rock and threw it into the sand, causing Diablos to rush out with an angry roar and quickly walk away. When you don't see her, Artemis continued to explore the rocky area while Hunter watched her from afar and found a wreck, which briefly made her think she might find water, but the barrel only contained sand. As she entered the remains of the ship, she was jumped on and grabbed from behind by Hunter, but she reacted quickly and began fighting hand to hand. Both are extremely skilled fighters and are always vigilant, but even though Artemis tries to stab Hunter in the shoulder with her own knife, he manages to overpower her and win the fight. After tying her hands, he took Artemis to his lair, trying to make her go faster before night fell and the spiders appeared. Artemis fell to the ground and picked up a piece of glass without his knowledge before she was picked up and carried away. In the cave, Hunter drank water from a special device he made and ate moss from the rocks, but he shared nothing with Artemis, and when she tried to speak, he silenced her because Nucillas was outside. Try to talk. To open the way. Next, Hunter prepared a special salve for the stab wound on his chest and prayed to the 2 figurines he carried with him, not knowing that Artemis was only pretending to sleep and was actually cutting the ropes on her wrist covered in glass shards. The next morning, Hunter went out to check on the storm and the monsters. When he returned, he couldn't find Artemis where he left her, falling into her ambush. After beating him and tying him up, she tried to drink his water, but he threw a strange device so she couldn't get it. They cannot communicate because they speak different languages, so Artemis responds by destroying his small altar, which angers him. Hunter jumped on him and they started fighting again, and all this moving and rolling got them out of the cave. Since they were unable to control the rolling, Hunter fell into a hole that took him to Nucilla's nest, but Artemis caught him in time and pulled him before cutting the ropes binding him. Trying to show that she is not his enemy, she gives him chocolate as a peace offering, which he tries and loves the taste of. In return, he lent her his wineskin, from which she drank before following him to the edge of the hill. There, they manage to make some contact. Both want to return to the storm, but Diablos hinders them. Artemis thinks they should go back to her military vehicle and get the weapons, but Hunter disagrees. Weapons are useless against monsters. Instead, he takes her to the entrance of Nucillas' nest to explain his idea. If they can kill a spider and take its poison, they can use it to defeat Diablos. Artemis agreed, calling it using one monster to kill another, and reluctantly agreed to act as bait. When the sun set, she stood in the middle of the rocky area and sang a military song to attract the attention of a Nucilla. The plan worked, and when a spider appeared, Artemis ran towards the trap they had set. Nucilla walked on a rope that captured her, and Hunter took the opportunity to jump from above with his giant sword and cut her head in half. They also cut off its stinger and brought it back to their lair before more Nucillas came after them. At the cave, after sharing a silly moment, Hunter explains to him that the figurines represent his family, now deceased. The next day, they started preparing their plan. Inside Nucilla's stinger was wrapped around an arrow. They set up a trap on the rubble, and Artemis was given armor and weapons for training. One is similar to a grappling hook. The other is a set of dual blades that can ignite when pressed together. When it came time to put the plan into action, things initially went quite well. They launched a makeshift catapult that sent a crate flying, and it landed in the middle of the dunes, sending Diablos a safe distance from them. Artemis and Hunter begin running towards his military vehicle. Diablos chases them, but they are forced to stop when the monster hides under the sand. Hunter decides to act as bait while Artemis goes to get her weapons, but while running, he accidentally drops the bag containing his family's figurines. When he turned around to get him, Diablos took the opportunity to rush out and knock him out. Hunter wasted no time and shot the poison arrow straight into his eye, which angered Diablos and made him chase faster, but Artemis distracted him by firing the car's machine gun. Diablos began to feel dizzy from the venom, but the bullets still weren't enough to hurt him, so he approached and flipped the car over after Artemis hid in it. The monster continued to follow her as she went outside, and Hunter took advantage of this distraction to jump on top of it and plunge his sword into its middle. Unfortunately, it didn't go deep enough, so Diablos knocked him off and sent him flying until he hit the other car. However, there was still a chance to finish him off, so Artemis threw her hook at Diablo's head so that as he moved, he used it to lift her up, allowing her to land on it. She stabbed her sword and finished what Hunter had started, finally killing Diablos. Since Hunter was still unconscious, Artemis gathered as many items as she could find from the cars and cut a piece of the monster's tough skin to make a makeshift stretcher and drag Hunter across the desert with her. After a few hours, the wind begins to pick up and puts them in danger, so Artemis sets up a tent around them and uses military emergency kits to make their hearts beat. The sandstorm eventually disappeared, leaving them buried in the sand, but thanks to the tent, they both survived and easily escaped the dune. After another long walk, Artemis and Hunter came to an oasis, so they decided to stop to rest. The area is inhabited by turtle-like creatures called apsaros, Hunter explains, which are herbivores, so there is no need to fear them. When Artemis approached the water to drink, another monster named Cephalos rushed out to attack her, but Hunter killed it with a quick sword strike and roasted it over a fire. Night fell after the two had dinner, and they were surprised by a sudden fire that burned down the oasis. There was another monster attacking, one larger than any they had seen so far, Rat Halos, a fire-breathing wyvern. A group of frightened apsaros ran in, trying to escape from Rat Halos, and hunters tried to pass, but Artemis fell to the ground among them. She thought she was about to be crushed when suddenly a figure appeared in front of her, was the Admiral, brandishing a burning sword to prevent the apsaros from approaching. Artemis stood up and activated the flames on her dual blades to follow while Hunter reached the edge of a cliff. He too would have been nearly crushed if not for the handler, who appeared hanging on a rope to pick him up and pull him back from the brink. Once all the apsaros have left, Artemis thanks the Admiral for his help, and he surprises her by speaking English right before knocking her out with a punch. She awakens later in the ship's cage while the Admiral's crew watches over her. They are chased away by Hunter, who clearly feels guilty about his imprisonment, but there is nothing he can do. After he left, Artemis noticed there was a trap door in the floor of her barn, so she used the couch to break the lock, open the door, and sneak into the kitchen. When she attempts to steal a knife, she is surprised by Palico, the Admiral's feline companion and official leader, who won't let her take anything. That's when Hunter arrived with good news. Artemis was now free. He takes her to the Admiral, who apologizes to her for the misunderstanding and unchains her before explaining why he did it in the first place. The Admiral feared her world and what it could do to it. Artemis was not the first to cross the border, and it was from previous visitors that he learned his language. Responsible for all of this is the Sky Tower, located on top of a mountain surrounded by storms. It is the remnants of an ancient civilization, quite advanced and dangerous. These ancient people knew how to travel between worlds, but now they are gone because the technology that powered them and the Admiral suspects Earth has something to do with it. They are on their way to investigate the tower, but Rat Halos is a dangerous obstacle. The Admiral suggested that if Artemis helped defeat them, in return they would help her return home, so of course, Artemis agreed. The crew ascended the mountain at dawn and reached the tower after a long and arduous climb. The Sky Tower stands on lava, and they believe that is what powers it, allowing it to control the storm and create a portal into its seemingly rather unstable world. As soon as they took a few steps towards the tower, they found shards of glass on the ground, meaning Rat Halos was close. After the Admiral reminded them that the wyvern was weak right before it breathed fire, the team split up and prepared to fight. Rat Halos burned several of the crew before landing between them and the tower. The Admiral was the first to attack him, with Artemis and Hunter following closely, all with their weapons on fire so they could deal damage. The other crew members also tried to help, but Rat Halos pushed them away as the tower began to light up all the special markers around it, matching the ones Artemis had seen in her world. Although they can land a few attacks, their damage is not enough to take down this creature. Rat Halos pursued Artemis with fire until she was forced to jump off a cliff, only to fall into a portal and return to her world. An army rescue team appeared to be helping her, saying they had been searching for her unit for some time. After placing her on a stretcher and loading her into the plane, they took off, but could not get far. Storms appeared above them again and Rat Halos flew into this world. The monster destroys the plane and causes it to crash before attacking the other vehicles. Unhindered by the rain of bullets, the soldiers fire at it and killing them all by breathing fire at them or even will eat them. Artemis, who survived the accident, saw all this and came up with a plan. After retrieving 2 flares from the crashed plane, she ran towards Rat Halos and pulled the hook on his wing, stabbing him with her knife as she was pulled closer. This angered the monster, who was about to breathe fire at her for what she had done. Artemis took this opportunity to light the fire, burning her hand in the process, and threw it into Rathalos's gaping mouth, burning it from the inside out. Unfortunately, this amount of damage is still not enough to kill the monster. He stood up, ready to attack Artemis, but he was interrupted by Hunter, who began firing some of his explosive arrows. One of them made it inside Rathalos thanks to the wound left by the fire, and this was the final blow needed to kill the monster. Then the Admiral arrived, telling her that they came because they couldn't let the monsters destroy her world. The Sky Tower opened another portal, and at the top there was a creature named Gormagala, so Artemis decided to return to the other world with them to destroy the tower and end this cycle once and for all. She, Hunter, and the Admiral pursue the new monster, pushing it back into its world when the Palico Sheriff joins the fight. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious masked figure is watching the battle from the top of the tower. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.